This 2024 NFC East Season Player Props edition of the Propcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Sign up with promo code MACHINE to score up to $1,000 in bonus cash. We're also brought to you by Rhythm. Get your 7-day free trial today by going to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/RITHMM.
As he throws deep downfield, it's going to be.
Welcome everyone to the Propcast, part of the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. Here to get into our final division preview for our season player props. If you can't see, a little tear dropped from the corner of my eye because I love doing these division previews. It's a lot of fun, but hey, we still have a whole season that's going to be in front of us, and we're going to be here to rock it as usual. Like I mentioned, we're getting into the NFC East today. A lot of intrigue in this division here as well. We'll talk about it momentarily. But joining me here to help me break everything down for the NFC East on this final division preview for our season player props, got my main man here with me. It's ChrisBeCappinn. Chris, what's going on, brother? How you doing?
Another beautiful day in paradise, Munaf. And you mentioned, man, last division. We've had, a lot of success. I don't think we toot our horns enough, specifically you. I broke even last year, 12-12 on player props, but it was positive because best bets, a little heavier, and we won a few more of those than we lost. And for yourself, you've been absolutely killing it. You won't toot your horn, I'll toot it for you a little bit. So, locking in these player props before the season starts, when we can kind of project where, things are going to be. Sometimes it's the best number that we're going to get throughout the whole season.
Yeah.
And I think that's why you see the little tear coming down, his eyes, if you can zoom in, because he's been, just killing it over the last couple of years. So, let's lock in and talk about the NFC East where my Commanders reside. I'm excited to get into it with you for the show today.
Yeah, and like we always mention, I mean, we keep on beating on the same drum, but we always say get the best number. And I don't think we can say that enough. I mean, we can sound repetitive on these pods, but that's what's led to the success of the Propcast. When we talk about these season player props, is getting the best of the number. And I've seen multiple times where if you don't get the best of the number and you get hooked or you lose by a handful of yards, that could be the difference between winning or losing. And I say again, if you have friends that are in other states, where it's legal, or, if you've gotten limited on one book and, whatever the case might be, get your friends and family to help you down and get you on the best of the numbers, because that's how you're going to be profitable with these season player props. Because again, remember, they're tied up anywhere from end of July, when a lot of these come out, to the month of August, all the way till the end of the season, which is, that first week of January. So, I can't preach that enough. Again, I may sound boring, or I may say the same things over and over again, but I think that's, that's when we talk about season player props, that's, basic 101 is getting the best number, to maximize your profits and, your win probability as well. But yeah, like Chris mentioned, NFC East here for today, and another interesting division, right? Because I think it's been now 20 years, Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, that we haven't seen a repeat division winner, that it's been a different team winning the division, obviously, every single time. Last year, I believe it was the Dallas Cowboys, if I'm not mistaken. The season prior was the Philadelphia Eagles. But, been a lot of moving parts in this division with new head coaches, with coordinators, players signing contracts, some trades that transpired over the past couple of weeks here as well. And I think the biggest news that did come down this week was, we'll start with the Dallas Cowboys, was Ceedee Lamb, signing his huge contract to stay with the Cowboys for 4 years, about $136 million. I believe the second highest paid non-quarterback, and rightfully so, right? When we talk about the numbers and you look at the numbers for Ceedee Lamb, they speak for themselves. And, we'll talk about that depth, which I'm concerned about a little bit for the Dallas Cowboys for this upcoming season. And I think rightfully so that Ceedee Lamb deserved all that money. The Giants, the big shiny new toy with Malik Neighbors there, who's just been making incredible catches and plays during the training camp. But I think the downfall for him is, number one, going to be having Daniel Jones as the quarterback for the New York Giants, and also that offensive line. Fans of the Giants are saying it's upgraded, but I'm still not a believer in it. I'll talk about some of the things the stats that are backing it up as we progress through this episode. And then you have the Eagles, right? The new offensive coordinator with Kellen Moore. Should be a bounce back year for Jalen Hurts. You still have AJ Brown there, Devontae Smith. They traded for Jahan Dotson from Chris's Commanders. Obviously, Saquon Barkley coming over from the Giants to back that man field for them. Man the backfield for them is what I'm trying to say. So, there was a lot of moving parts, especially within the own division here throughout the offseason here, Chris. So, but let's start with those three teams, and then we'll get into your Commanders, because it's a new era there as well, with a new head coach, a new quarterback there as well. But what have you seen from these three NFC East teams?
Yeah, the NFC East is going to look. I think it's going to look. Some of it's going to look the same. Some of it I think is going to change. I think Dallas is going to continue to be pretty good at football. They typically are. Then they melted away late. That's what we come to expect from them. But they really do have a really good season. You also got Dak, playing on expiring contract. So
yeah,
Dallas didn't do themselves any favor by not extending them when they could have. So they're gonna have to spend some money if they want to bring him back at quarterback. And you mentioned, it took a very long time, all of the preseason and past the preseason, for Ceedee Lamb to get his money as well. Deservingly so, because if you're not throwing the ball, who you throwing it to him? Older, fading Brandon Cooks or Jalen Tolbert. So I didn't really feel like they had too much of an option. I think it was some big question marks in the offensive line, and of course last year with that defense that ended up getting blasted by the Packers. But this is a very explosive offense. I think we got to give Dak a lot of credit. They were the highest scoring offense last season. Dak was really, really good in most spots, and for one of the first times in a long time, it almost felt like you couldn't necessarily put all the blame on the quarterback position, whether that's Romo or who the quarterbacks have been. So they need to extend Dak, but he's going about it like a professional. Defense does change a little bit with Mike Zimmer being the head, the defensive coordinator now. They're going to shift to a 4-3, I think, out of that 3-4, which is going to be interesting. And the defense I think is going to be what ends up propelling the team up and over, or we'll see what it ends up being. As far as the Giants, I don't know, you took the words out of my mouth, man. You got Danny Dimes out there, and also could be Danny Pennies at times. It's difficult. It's difficult to know what you're going to get from him. No Saquon Barkley, of course. The defense played pretty well last season, but just how much are they going to be able to get from their offense? You mentioned Neighbors being there out of LSU, and I think that he is definitely going to be one of the top rookies to watch out for. But as a receiver, which we'll talk about when I talk about one of my player props, very dependent upon your offensive line, how well they can block. Also very dependent upon your quarterback that's throwing you the ball and how accurate they can be, on time with those passes. So, he was somebody that I was like, I don't really know. We'll talk about him, I'm sure a little bit more, And then we have my Washington Commanders that I'm a little more higher on this year, man. I like the addition to upgrade at quarterback, of course. We continuously just upgrade quarterback, 7 straight seasons without a winning record. We've had one season where we, finished right on the cusp at 8-8, 12 starting quarterbacks since 2018, which is the most in the NFL. But we do get a new new head coach in Dan Quinn, who spent a lot of time in Dallas and some time in Atlanta as well. New offensive coordinator with Cliff Kingsbury as well, and a new defensive coordinator with Joe Witt, who was the secondary coach for Dallas. So some upgrades for Washington, and we can't look but so much worse than we did last year. We gave up the most points per game last season. It wasn't even close. I think this was a historically poor defense, but Jack Del Rio is out, Ron Rivera is out, and at least we turn it around and projected to go in the right direction this season. And if we can keep our quarterback healthy, I think our offense is going to be good. Still a lot of question marks on the defense, but I do like some of those additions. Bringing in some of those older guys that are just going to kind of change the culture, it feels like. You still got Deron Payne, Jonathan Allen on that defensive end. I love the addition of Bobby Wagner, even though he is 34 years old now. I still think he helps with changing some of that trajectory as well. So, I'm excited for the Commanders this season, man.
Yeah, look, like we mentioned, right? It's a brand new regime there, right? Bringing over, like we talked about, Dan Quinn as the head coach here, coming over from the Dallas Cowboys. who was the defensive coordinator there. You have a new head coach in new quarterback in Jaden Daniels. Bobby Wagner comes over to be that voice, right? That anchor for that defense, which I think is going to be huge for them. Sometimes you just need an adult in the room when you talk about some of these young teams, and I think that really can make the difference. Just having that culture, and everything in the past that's happened with the ownership, with the Commanders. I think, excuse me, now is the time to really turn that page there. And I wanted to get your thoughts on Eric Bieniemy, because when he was with the offensive coordinator with the Kansas City Chiefs, his name year after year after they won the Super Bowl popped up in a lot of head coaching conversations, and obviously not being there anymore. What do we think of Eric Bieniemy? I mean, I know you're the Commanders fan. Well, is it that he's maybe not a good interviewer? Is he that he had Patrick Mahomes as a quarterback for so many years that made him look good? I mean, my Texans, when they were looking for a head coach, I mean, his name was at the top of the list. And I think it was a very smart move for whatever reason happened, whether he's not a good interviewer or the case might be, that they didn't hire him as the head coach there. I mean, if you did see anything from or read anything in the weeds from beat reports or anything like that from Eric Bieniemy, because it feels like he's fallen off the face of at least the football league. And this was a guy that was very highly touted to be a head coach here sometime or somewhere here, Chris.
Yeah, Eric. I think I honestly, I think a lot can be overlooked, right? And the way the NFL works is that if your unit is having success, whether that's on the offensive side or the defensive side, right? It doesn't matter if you're a quarterback's coach, a defensive lineman coach, a DB coach. If things are trending in a direction that are positive, then you just kind of get brought along in whatever narrative that is, right? And the same thing is if it's bad too, right? Like if it's bad, you're gonna get some of the blame, even though your unit might have been doing a little bit better. So I say all that to say that I do think a lot of this, when you have a guy who is as great as Patrick Mahomes is, and we don't have to go into how great Patrick Mahomes is, it can act as a Band-Aid for a lot, a lot, right?
Yeah.
We've seen the references in basketball where it's just that one-star player. And when they play, the team is, 10 points better than when they're not, a part of the game. So I do kind of feel like, it's Patrick Mahomes going out there, making the plays, some of those audibles from Eric Bieniemy's plays and just that team, right? It almost kind of feels like, I know you need to be intuitive and innovative, but it kind of feels like, to a certain extent, me and you could go out there and be the offensive coordinator for Patrick Mahomes because he knows what works, right? So I do kind of feel like a lot of it, his name was always in the weeds because he was playing for a unit that was so successful for such a long time. But they also had Travis Kelce, right? And they also had Patrick Mahomes. And then in the grand scheme of things, you also still got Andy Reid, who's one of the greatest offensive minds that we've seen going all the way back to, his days in Philly and et cetera, et cetera. So I do kind of feel like that was a big part of it for Eric Bieniemy, and just, his route to success, I guess.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that that was a conversation to be had about Eric Bieniemy. Maybe there was a point where Ron Rivera was either going to get fired or mutually part ways, or whatever the case might have been. I thought that it seemed at the time that maybe Eric Bieniemy was going to take over as the head coach there, but again, that didn't come into fruition. Now with Dan Quinn there, and obviously I think Clint Clinsbury as the offensive coordinator there to work with Jaden Daniels. Well, that could turn into a longer conversation than I thought it would. But before we get into the player props here again, make sure you guys check out the merch store.sportsgamblingpodcast.com to get 10% off of everything happening in the merch store. Make sure you use that promo code football in honor of the football season being back. And of course, make sure to check out the college football experience for week 1 picks, as college football kicks off Thursday night for week 1 officially. We are back with college football, and lo and behold, before we know it, that NFL season next week is going to be definitely underway. And let me also tell everyone about our friends over at Underdog Fantasy. Underdog Fantasy Pick'em gives you a chance to win 1,000 extra entry or play fantasy football the right way with Best Ball. Best Ball Mania is live with 15 million in prizes. You can now use specials and boosts on all flex entries. So make sure you guys sign up with that promo code MACHINE because you'll get a special pick and a first-time deposit offer up to 1,000 in bonus cash. That's underdogfantasy.com. Make sure that promo code MACHINE. All right, Chris, let's get into our player props here for the NFC East, my man. I'll let you lead it off.
All right, we'll go quarterback, and we'll start in Philly. I'm really, really high on the bounce back for the Philadelphia Eagles. And it's interesting to say that we're thinking about the Eagles and a bounce back because they started the season off so great, right? What was it? 8-1, 9-1, 10-1, something like that. And then they fall flat on their face and can't win a game late, right? They end up losing and, really wasn't even close. And you could see the kind of trajectory that was going on. But I remember thinking, man, everybody thinks the sky's falling, with the Eagles. And I don't think it's falling. And I was wrong. It was clearly falling. And I would if I was betting, I would have been the one catching that falling knife. I think it's going to look totally different here this year. You got some upgrades here, to the offense. Saquon Barkley coming over from the New York Giants. I'm going Jalen Hurts, and I'm looking at his interceptions. Actually, I'm taking the under here. Only available on DraftKings. You are paying a little juice, -125, but they're projected. The Eagles are to face the projected pass defenses are really, really poor for the Eagles. So I think that's a big part of it, right? The defenses in general that they're going to face are not going to be good. When you look back at the 15 of the 16 interception worthy throws that he threw last season, 15 of the 16 got picked.
Yeah.
So that's some bad luck, and you expect that to revert back. I also expect the Eagles to be playing with a lead in a lot of their games this season. They're favored in a lot of games, and they've actually jumped the Dallas Cowboys to win the division. They're favored in 13 of their 17 games. So I expect them to be playing from a lead. I think that offensive line is going to be a little bit better improved as well. And I expect them to be able to run the ball to close out some of the second half stuff. So I'm thinking, offense gets the ball out a lot quicker with the new, offensive coordinator coming in. It's something that if you guys have been, paying attention to the beat reporters in camp, that's something that they've talked about religiously is how quickly they want to get the ball out. So he got big, explosive, fast receivers in Brown and, Devontae Smith. Like it's a bunch of guys that he can, get the ball to. I just think Jalen Hurts is going to have a very, very, a much more productive season this year, and the interceptions won't look nearly as we've seen before. This will be his 5th year in the NFL. The only time he's thrown 15 11 interceptions, which is where the number is, was last season. Even his rookie year, he only played in 15 of those games, and he only threw 4. In the second year, only 9. The third year went down to 6. You see that uptick all the way up to 15. I think the book setting this at 10.5. They understand, especially with it being juice, that Jalen Hurts is in a really good predicament here, to go under the 10.5 interceptions. I think single-digit interceptions. I don't even think he gets to 10.
I mean, you mentioned it, right? 16 worthy throws last season that could have been picked. 15 of those got picked. So when we talk about turnover luck, that regression is 100% due for Philadelphia Eagles and Jalen Hurts, right? But yeah, right. And we talk about last season, Brian Johnson as their offensive coordinator really didn't pan out because what we were used to seeing in 2022 from this Eagles team, it was just boom, boom, automatic, getting down the field, scoring touchdowns. And that's what led them to getting all the way to the Super Bowl, how successful their offense was during that season. Fast forward to this upcoming season, Kellen Moore comes in as the head coach. The offensive coordinator for this team. And we've seen the success that he had. I think it was the year where he was with the Chargers, where they had a really, really good season. Justin Herbert did. And I want to say it was 2 or 3 years ago as the offensive coordinator for the Dallas Mavericks, Dallas Cowboys, to, have how great of a season Dak Prescott had. And that offense about just scoring points, right? So I think now bringing in Kellen Moore, implementing his system and putting his twist on it, I think that's just going to bode well for Jalen Hurts. And again, the weapons on this team are just absolutely they put together a roster that could be primed to make another Super Bowl run, and maybe possibly win it this year, right? With Jalen Hurts, like you mentioned, but you still have it, like I mentioned, AJ Brown, Devontae Smith. You have Saquon in the backfield now. Dallas Goedert, he's going to be healthy for the upcoming season as well. And the offensive line, yes, without Jason Kelsey, retired now, but I think they still have enough up there to be one of the better offensive lines in the NFL for this upcoming season. So I couldn't talk you off of this one here for his interceptions for Jalen Hurts. All right, for my first quarterback prop here, I'm going to go Daniel Jones interceptions over. I'm going to go the other way. Chris, the number doesn't make sense to me. And I think that, look, right now, the number, I believe I saw it is at 8.5 for Daniel Jones. And if you take a look at what he's done throughout his career, it just hasn't been very, very pretty for him. I'm not sure if you watched his first preseason game coming back from the injury. The first throw he made, and it was against my Texans because I know
I know you were locked in.
I was locked in watching the game. And that first throw that he made could have been picked off, but it wasn't. And I think it was the second series that he came in, he threw a pick six that he could have just taken the safety and, all right, look, you gave up 2 points, but he decided to attempt to throw the ball away, got picked off right at the 5-yard line. I think it was Jalen Petrie that made that interception and walked it into the end zone. So right now that number for Daniel Jones is sitting at 8.5. And Chris is talking about what he's done throughout his career as far as throwing interceptions. Obviously last year he only played in 6 games, threw 2 interceptions, but prior to that, I'm sorry, he still threw 6 interceptions in 6 games last year. And prior to that, 5 interceptions, 7, and then the first 2 years of his career, 12 and 10. I think the Giants fans know, I think Daniel Jones knows that this is probably his last year as a starting quarterback for this team, but I think the mistakes are going to continue to be there for a guy like Daniel Jones because, again, you have the weapons there in that wide receiving group with obviously Malik Neighbors, Wan'Dale Robinson, Jalen Hyatt, and then you also have Mr. Consistency there with Darius Slayton. And I'm not sold on the running back group, right? You lose, obviously, Saquon Barkley here, but you replace that with Motor Singleton. Yeah, Singletary, he had a great season with the Texans last year, but this offensive line I'm still not sold on. And again, if the opposing front seven generates pressure on that offensive line and it rattles Daniel Jones and he makes those type of throws again like he did mostly throughout his career, but also what we saw in that preseason game against the Texans, this number could probably cash hopefully by the midway point of the season for me. So I thought this 8.5 number was a little low for Daniel Jones. Is there a possibility that he does get replaced? Maybe latter part of the year, but I'm hoping by that time, he has gotten over this number of 8.5 interceptions thrown here, Chris.
Yeah, the first thing that jumped out to me, is as I was hearing you say this, and that number is extremely conservative.
Yeah,
I would agree with you there. First thing that jumped out to me, is will he be replaced? I mean, in 2023, they gave this man 4 years, $160 million. Can you really afford to replace him here? I don't think that you can. I think you just got to continue to build with Daniel Jones. So I loved everything. I think the breakdown was right on point. I actually did not even look into this. So shame on myself for not doing so. This immediately becomes one of my favorite here, Definitely becomes one of my favorites. I also just think that last thing I mentioned is I just think that they'll be playing from behind. And if they are playing from behind, this is more passes, right? We don't expect the running back room to be great. The wide receiver room actually isn't great outside of Malik Neighbors as well. So, we expect them to make some poor choices. And, he started off early, in the preseason.
Drew Lock is a backup there. We've seen him be a journeyman throughout his career, but there's an opportunity if Drew Lock does come in. I think it's probably at the latter part of the year. Like we've mentioned that if Daniel Jones does get benched or misses time, if he does miss time, it's probably injury related, because I do think that they're going to have to rely on his shoulders, at least for maybe the first 12, 13 weeks for this Giants offense. I think by that time, I think this number does get over the number of 8.5 right now. That is available on DraftKings. Chris, let's go. Play prop number 2, man. What do you got?
We are going to DC, and we are looking at Mr. Scary Terry McLaurin. I like him up and over the 900.5 receiving yards here.
Easy.
I thought this was a very, very, you talk about the interception number being conservative. I thought this was a very conservative numbers. And we know we don't like to give out too many overs. I totally get it. But this is, I think, highly dependent upon the market doesn't know where to set it, because we don't know how good Jaden Daniels is going to be.
Yeah.
I actually think he's going to be pretty good, enough to get Scary Terry up and over this 901. I'm looking at also, the wide receiving room, and none of these names jump out to me. I like that, the addition of Zach Ertz, and I do think that he's going to utilize his tight end, which we often, hype up tight ends and talk about them being security blankets, on this show religiously. But, outside of Scary Terry, I don't think that there's anything else that really scares me off of taking, Terry McLaurin under, so over 900.5 receiving yards. Jaden Daniels is an accurate deep ball thrower, as we saw in that first drive of his preseason career, where he connected with Terry McLaurin on a deep go route on the right-hand side. It was beautiful. Hopefully it's of things to come. And you look at Terry, his trajectory and, just his pass so far. He's played with double-digit quarterbacks in 5 years. His short 5-year career already played with double-digit quarterbacks. And, he spoke about it in that game against the Patriots, the last preseason game the other day. He's gone over 901 yards, at all 5, even during his rookie season. And I think the defense, which I do expect it to be a little bit better, I do think that it's still going to struggle. So you're going to have Washington playing from behind. The Commanders aren't, it's not like they're favored in a bunch of games this season. So I think, Commanders playing from behind, Scary Terry will be out there to be a force in what might be the best quarterback that he's played with in his career here, So a very, very conservative number. I like the chemistry that they developed throughout training camp, and I love you got to love what you see if you like the over here. I'll take Terry McLaurin up and over 900.5. Best number I see over on Bet365. No juice at all, just 10 cents. So I'll take Scary Terry here.
Yeah, I think this is probably my favorite season-long player prop from everything that we've given out over the divisions on Scary Terry here. That and the Jared Goff one, because as soon as I saw Jahan Dotson get traded over to the Eagles,
totally forgot to mention him, Go ahead.
No. It's the fact that, again, like you mentioned, it's you're worried about the wide receiver depth. And I know they just added Noah Brown from the Texans, who got cut there. I think that he's going to be really, really good for them if he's able to stay healthy, because I know what he did for the Texans when Tank Dell went down last season. But it's Scary Terry, right? And the number, like you mentioned, 900.5. He's done this in every single season in his NFL career. 4 straight seasons of 1,000-yard receiving. 4 straight 1,000-yard receiving seasons for Scary Terry. And I think what you mentioned, that with Jaden Daniels now being the quarterback there, this feels eerily very, very similar to what we saw from Nico Collins last year. And I say that because I saw this with my own eyes, because I know Scary Terry is a whole heck of a lot better than Nico Collins, and Terry McLaurin has put up the numbers. But for the Texans, ever since Nico Collins entered the NFL, he was going from quarterback to quarterback as well, and not as much as Terry McLaurin has. But he had Davis Mills in there. And then finally we brought in CJ Stroud last year, and we saw what Nico Collins was able to do, where he was pretty much the number one option. And then there was guys like Tank Dell, rookie year, Noah Brown when he was healthy. But Terry McLaurin has been the constant guy in this offense for the Washington Redskins, Commanders, whatever you want to call them, football team. And I think this is going to be, a barring injury, of course. Even if he plays, let's just say 13, 14 games here, Chris, I still think that he gets over this number of 900.5. This is a very, very conservative number here for Scary Terry. So, yeah, I co-sign this with you. This is one of my, like I mentioned, my more favorite bets for this upcoming season for Scary Terry. I think this number it's short of 100 yards of where it should be for Scary Terry here. So we're going to be watching Scary Terry all throughout the season. I may put 2 units on this, Chris, because I like the number so much. It's really conservative.
Let's cash it, I thought it was very conservative as well. That's the only point I'll say. I'm not sure what the books see here, but yeah, hopefully we're not, snake bitten here, but it's a hill that I'm willing to die on, as I am with Daniel Jones and those those interceptions as well, because I can't see why that number's so low with him having 10 and 12 over his last 2 seasons. So, yeah, right there with you, love Scary Terry, love my Commanders, and this gives me something to root for.
It could also be the fact that they also may be playing from behind. Like we talked about with the Cowboys, and I think a lot of these teams, especially except for the Eagles. I know Dan Quinn comes in that he's going to give this defense a boost, and he has his guys and horses on that defensive side. But there could be a possibility where they may be playing from behind a little bit as well. But I think that like you mentioned, that the key part of it, the chemistry that Scary Terry and Jaden Daniels have developed over the course of the preseason and in OTAs and training camp and practice like that, I think that's going to pay dividends tremendously for this team, and of course, more importantly, for Scary Terry for us for this upcoming year. All right, Chris, before we continue the conversation here for this NFC East division, let me tell everyone about our friends over at Rhythm. Hey, look, college football is officially here. NFL starts next week, and Rhythm gives you the opportunity to create your own betting models. And if you always wanted to create your own betting model for football, do you even know how to do it? You probably don't. And SGPN is a proud partner with Rhythm because they are the #1 AI-powered backed betting platform that helps provide bettors of all levels the ability to build custom predictive betting models in seconds and get predictions for betting on money lines, spreads, totals, and props. Build your own model or copy one of the top performing models from the leaderboard, or press build a model from me and Rhythm. Gives you the predictions for every game and player props, more importantly. And they also have a myriad of stats, research, and trends analysis to give you even more betting insights. We'll talk more about Rhythm and their player prop projections when we get to the regular season, so stay tuned for that. I'm definitely excited to see what they are going to be looking at here. Maybe we can find some value there as well. And let's not forget the Rhythm college football model loved Delaware State last week against Hawaii and the points, and they rather covered fairly easily. So you guys need to make sure to check out Rhythm. You can build your own model, like I mentioned, and you can get ready for week 1 of college football, which kicks off tonight on Thursday. So make sure to claim your 7-day free trial by going to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/RITHMM. All right, Chris. So huge agreement there for the both of us on Scary Terry here. So why don't you take us over to your next player prop here, player prop number 3.
We are going to Dallas. This is actually one of the first times, if I think that, I guess it's probably because I know the division, I feel really confident and comfortable with it, that I've branched out and, got a player prop on 3 different teams. And I think all of them are really good plays as well. Love the Scary Terry look and love Jalen Hurts under his interceptions as well. But we'll go to Dallas, and another guy that I think is not, just has a number that's quite a tad bit too low. And that I'm willing to go up and over on is Jake Ferguson. I look at that tight end room and that wide receiving group in general. It's not that great, I mean, of course, you got Ceedee Lamb, and it kind of feels a little bit to me like kind of like the Washington situation, right? Where you have elite wide receiver, and who's going to be that second guy? I think Scary Terry is going to be the first guy in Washington, and Ceedee Lamb, of course, is going to continue to be the first guy in Dallas. But Jake Ferguson is going to be that second guy, the same way I think that Zach Ertz can be for Dak Prescott. So, coming into his 3rd season, Dallas is going. I think coming into his 3rd year, last year he went up and over the number 761 last season on 102 targets. I see even more targets and even more receptions this season. We got a aging Brandon Cooks. I'm just not a big believer in the Dallas wide receiving room right now. And I think, as we've seen with Dak Prescott for, throughout the longevity of his career, he loves his tight end. That's a security blanket. Yeah. And Dallas was #1 in offense last season, scoring a bunch of points, right? Dak played really, really well. I think he threw the most touchdowns last season. And I don't think that they go backwards in offense this season. I think the defense also probably took a step back. So I expect Dallas, to have to throw the ball even more. So I like Ferguson, if it's not as detail, but with him going up and over last season and me thinking he gets even more usage this season, I'll take him up and over the 650.5 receiving yards here.
Yeah, and you take a look at the skill positions there, especially at that receiver group, right? It's Ceedee Lamb, and then who is it? I mean, Brandon Cooks. Yeah, he's getting up there in age there as well. I mean, it's still very reliable, I think, but I mean, like you mentioned, right? Last season is where Jake Ferguson really came on for this offense. And we know when we talk about tight ends with this Dallas Cowboys organization, you think of Jason Witten and how Tony Romo utilized him. And I think Jake Ferguson, they had Dalton Schultz there, just didn't quite pan out because they also had Jake Ferguson there, like we mentioned here. But I think now him knowing that he's going to be that number one guy at that tight end position, and we saw that come into fruition last year for Jake Ferguson. I think that this is a good security blanket, like you mentioned there, Chris, for Dak Prescott. If again, if Ceedee Lamb is getting double coverage or whatever the case might be. So yeah, I like this number as well. I looked at this when I was going to mention this on our honorable mentions, but I'm glad you did end up taking this for Jake Ferguson and the Dallas Cowboys for this upcoming season. All right, for my last one, a couple of different ways that could have gone here. I know I haven't backed an Eagles receiver or Saquon Barkley yet. I think Saquon's going to have a pretty good year for the Eagles, and I couldn't determine which wide receiver was possibly going to have to take a step back for this team. I just can't fade AJ Brown and Devontae Smith, and it'll just be barring on injury. Jahan Dotson, I think, is a great number 3 guy that they did pick up, but I think Dallas Goedert is going to be there as well for this. But again, it just feels like it's going to be a lot of mouths to feed as well for the Philadelphia Eagles. And I'm just curious to see what Dallas Goedert's number is for the upcoming season. I think anything above like 500-600, I would probably take the over on. So yeah, I want to go Dallas Goedert under 625.5 receiving yards. And this one is on FanDuel right now, which is available. And this is a fact, like I mentioned, right? It's just a lot of mouths to feed over on the Philadelphia Eagles offensive side. And we mentioned when we talked about the Eagles earlier is that they are probably going to end up playing with a lot of leads going into maybe that latter part of the third quarter, going into the fourth quarter, where they don't have to throw the football. And it's going to be a lot of Saquon, right? And just running the football, trying to run out the clock and go home and get the victory. Because when we talk about Dallas Goedert, he's probably maybe 3A, 3B, maybe 4th option, because we know it's going to be AJ Brown. We know it's going to be Saquon coming out of the backfield. We know it's going to be Devontae Smith. We'll see what role Jahan Dotson does have for this team, but they haven't been afraid to utilize different type of players in their offense for the Philadelphia Eagles. I think that's what really led to their success. Obviously, we know the bulk of it is going to come from AJ Brown getting up and over 1,200 yards. Same thing with Devontae Smith getting up and over 1,000 yards. And I still feel like this team stays committed to the running game. And I think that's the reason why they brought over Saquon Barkley behind this offensive line. And I think that he's going to have a lot of success there as well. So I feel like somebody's going to have to take that step back. And right now for this number to be at 625.5 for Dallas Goedert, I think the receptions will be there for him. I don't think the targets will be there for him either, but I think this number is a little bit rich for a guy like Dallas Goedert. So it's just the fact that I'm saying, hey, a lot of mouths to feed, a team that's going to be favored in most of their games this upcoming season, getting to that latter part of that third quarter, fourth quarter, where you don't need to throw the football. And I think that's obviously where it's really going to add up. And again, injury concern as well for Dallas Goedert. Now he's coming off the injury last season where he missed a lot of time for this Philadelphia Eagles team. Just looking at it last year, for Dallas Goedert, as I pull it up here, give me 1 second. He played last year. Let's see. Dallas Goedert last year. Let's see. So 2018, he played in 16 games. That was his rookie season for the Philadelphia Eagles. Last season, he did play in 14 games for them. But again, he only finished with 592 receiving yards last season, 59 receptions, 3 touchdowns. He's gotten over this number 3 times in his career, but this is going to be his, 7th season. So he's done it about the half of the time. And there's, again, only been 1 year where he's played a full 16 games, and that was his rookie year. Since then, 15, 11, 15, and over the last 2 seasons, 12 and 14. So injury is a huge concern for Dallas Goedert. So I say all that, Chris, under 625.5 for Dallas Goedert receiving yards.
And, going back to the first point that you made, it was the one that stuck out the most to me. And it was also the reason why I couldn't get there with any of these receivers to go up and over. But you really don't know, right? You don't know. And when you don't know and you feel like, man, I'm not confident enough to take that over, a lot of people will just shy away from it altogether. But actually, you do yourself a disservice, because most of the time that's when you get better under, and it comes to fruition, and it's something that you've done a really good job at. If I love the angle here, like you said, it's just way too many mouths to feed, in my opinion. You just told me that you like a wide receiver because they lost some depth, right? You like Scary Terry because Jahan Dotson is gone, and now you're telling me that you're fading the tight end because there's another mouth to feed. So it makes perfect sense, right? you fade, like you said, Dallas, in this situation, because now Dotson's going to want to come in there and prove himself as well. You got Saquon, who can catch the ball out the backfield, AJ Brown, Devontae Smith. I'm pretty sure this offense is going to be potent, but I think you picked a really, really good one. If not one of the more explosive players, and you got him coming off the injury, like you said. So I'm in agreement here. I would only look towards the under for Dallas Gert.
Love it. All right, so those are our 3 player props each for myself and Chris. Chris, let's get into some honorable mentions for this division. Anything that you were looking at but just couldn't quite get to the window with?
Not really. We just mentioned the wide receiver room for Philly. Jaden Daniels, I think, is there's a lot of variance there, of course. In that wide receiver for the quarterback position for Washington. Dak had a very, very great season last season, and I kind of feel like if I'm betting on him, I only want to go up and over on some of his numbers again as well, but I didn't quite get there. And yeah, if I'm betting Daniel Jones, I'm only going under maybe some of those wide receivers, but not anything that really stuck out. This was one, where I just kind of looked at situationally and I said, I really like this. And that was the case with Jalen Hurts. That was also the case with Terry McLaurin and Jake Ferguson. Like, those players just kind of really stood out to me. I did did my due diligence, looked into their numbers, read a couple things from beat reporters, and felt even more comfortable with those and said, you know what? I'm not even going anywhere else. These are the plays that I like. What about yourself?
Yeah, I think I share the same sentiments of what you just mentioned there, right? Obviously, AJ Brown has had 2 seasons of over 1,400 yards for the Philadelphia Eagles, played in all 17 games. So, again, maybe I don't want to say injury regression due for him, because we've seen a lot of guys that have been able to stay healthy throughout their season. And I just don't want to take a lot of unders with this Eagles offense when it comes to their top 2 guys, because I know that the ball is going to be going to those 2 guys. Something similar to what with Tua, with Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. I just didn't want to take an under. And obviously, like we mentioned, that could be derailed by injuries. But again, we know those are going to be the top 2 guys getting the most targets and getting the football there. And you also had Saquon Barkley to the mix, right? I think Saquon's going to be a guy that I want to watch week to week on how they really utilize him, whether it's going to be obviously in the running game, because again, he's this explosive running back, but also how they utilize him in the passing game as well, because we know he can catch those screen passes and really honestly take it to the house. So those were the kind of the wait and see approaches for me. Mentioned the Giants the wide receiver group there. We know it's going to be Malik Neighbors. Darius Slayton has been with that one consistent guy. I really didn't see numbers available for Wan'Dale Robinson and Jalen Hyde a lot. So maybe that's something week to week we watch as well. And we mentioned for the Commanders, I think both you and I 100% agree that this is probably one of our favorite, if not the favorite play, with Scary Terry. And as soon as I saw Jahan Dotson getting traded, it just reeked very, very similar to me of what Nico Collins was able to do last year for this Texans team. But Terry McLaurin has done it, like I mentioned, we talked about that more consistently throughout his career. But now I think that's just going to continue to, be there for him now, having a future quarterback of this franchise with Jaden Daniels. So it's going to be a lot of fun to watch your Commanders, honestly. I think this division in totality, with the number of points and the skill positions that are in this division, especially at the wide receivers, right? We talk about Ceedee Lamb, Malik Neighbors, Scary Terry, AJ Brown, Devontae Smith. So it's going to be a lot of fun to watch this division and when we go week to week. All right, Chris, let's wrap it up here with our best bets for the NFC East division. I'll let you lead it off, man. I think we might have a double best bet here, but where are you going?
Yeah, we absolutely could. I'll let you save the Scary Terry one. I really, really enjoyed the Jalen Hurts one. under
Okay.
10.5 interceptions here for Jalen Hurts. I just look at strength of schedule. Is really, really good for this team. They're favored in 13 of the 14 games. 13 of the 17 games. I don't think that they'll be playing from behind a lot. Prep differential +1, rest advantage +3. I just think that they're going to be really, really prepared to bounce back. And I think a lot of that will lead to them getting out to those early leads. And Jalen Hurts not even really passing the football too often, in the second half. I think Philly will be a team that jumps out on their opponents. I look at their schedule. They do start off with Green Bay, but then they got, games against Atlanta, New Orleans, Tampa Bay, Cleveland, which is, a lot better against the run than the pass. They got the Giants, of course, twice. They got us twice. So yeah. I just don't see, a lot of mistakes coming from him in a fast-paced, hurry-up style type offense where I expect the ball to get out a lot faster this season with the turnover at offensive coordinator position. So I'll go Jalen Hurts under the 10.5 interceptions here, and say Scary Terry for you, because I know that's where you're going.
Yeah, I mean, look,
rightfully so.
Yeah, rightfully so, right? Because again, we've done a lot of these, obviously now all the division previews, and there's been at least probably one in each one of the divisions that we've done that we've agreed upon wholeheartedly. And it would be, I don't think it would be a disservice if we didn't give that out as a best bet if one of us didn't, because it just makes a lot of sense for what Scary Terry has been able to do, not only throughout his career, but what we expect him to do this upcoming season. 4 straight seasons of 1,000 receiving yards for Scary Terry. That's an elite company. I was watching the last game. I think it was last Sunday night with your Commanders that were on TV, and it was an elite list of the wide receivers that have had at least 4 straight 1,000 receiving yards seasons, and that was the top guys you can think of. I think Ceedee was on that list, Tyreek Hill, Justin Jefferson. So he's in elite company, and I think that because he's been with the Commanders and all the negativity that's kind of come out of that organization as a whole, that we've kind of forgotten how good Scary Terry is. And I think now with all that past him, with a new era, with a new regime, with a new quarterback there for
competent
Scary Terry,
quarterback,
yeah, that this is the time where he's going to shine, and I think that this could be a guy that could honestly get into the realm of 1,300. Who knows, 1,400 receiving yards for the upcoming season. But right now, for this number, it's for the books. It poses at 900.5 at -110. I think that number is criminally wrong for Scary Terry. So I'll give that out as the best bet. Scary Terry over 900.5 receiving yards for the Washington Commanders for this upcoming 2024 season. And as sad as this, Chris, that is the last division preview for our season player props for this upcoming 2024 season. Man, it has been just so much fun going through these division previews for this upcoming season. 8 divisions in the books. If you haven't already gone back and listened to all the divisions, you have time to do it as the season kicks off next Thursday with the Ravens and the Chiefs. Definitely excited for that. Obviously, we'll be here for it to give our player props for that game. But Chris, man, this has been a lot of fun, man. Any other thoughts you have before we close the books on these division previews for the 2024 year?
Just reiterating what you said, like you said, this has been, really fun, man. My second year doing this with you. I'm thankful for the opportunity. I always tell you that, for reaching out to me and asking me if I wanted to do the work and be a part of the grind. And it's fun. I really, really do enjoy being able to come on here and talk these player props out with you and, share our thoughts and bounce ideas off of each other. It's been absolutely amazing. And I'm just excited for the season because we're a step closer, a second closer, a day closer, to real football. So if you haven't checked out the other ones, as Munaf mentioned, definitely go back and check out those episodes. I think we absolutely have some gems in those, and leave us a rating and review as well. Enjoy the football season. Me and Munaf will be back, talking, Thursday night football, Monday night football, Sunday football, and hopefully we can put some money in you guys' pocket as we do for ourselves as well. So super excited for the season, Munaf. And again, appreciate you for having me on.
Yeah, 100%, man. It's again been a lot of fun with Chris, but again, we'll be here obviously throughout the season, at least twice a week. Like Chris mentioned, we'll do a ISO episode for the Thursday night game, and then obviously for the Sunday games as well. And then Monday Night Football as well. We'll mix that in if we do have player props for that game as well. If not, who knows? Maybe we'll do a third episode, just isolate the Monday Night Football game as well. But yeah, great reminder. Again, we'll be live on YouTube. We'll figure out the schedule here shortly on where we will go live for the regular season. So stay tuned and make sure that to subscribe to the Propcast on YouTube. You'll know when we go live here, so you can get ahead, maybe even ahead of the numbers before they do move. Then obviously, wherever you do get your audio for podcasts, whether it's on Apple, whether it's on Spotify, do us a favor, go and subscribe there. Leave us a rating and review if you have enjoyed these pods along with us. So I'm definitely excited for the regular season. You guys make sure to follow Chris on the Twitter machine at ChrisBeCappinn with 2 P's and 2 N's. You can follow me there as well at SportsNerd824. In our next episode, we'll be getting ready for Thursday Night Football player props. We'll probably do that maybe Tuesday, Wednesday. We'll see when the props are out. But again, definitely excited for the season. Hopefully we can put money in the pockets of our listeners. And again, just so excited. So we'll leave it at that. All right, guys. So good luck with your bets. Enjoy these few days off before the grind of the season is here. And we'll talk to you guys then. And make sure to always remember to let it ride.